We are back in Senate Judiciary. It's still February 12th. We have the Vermont Council on the Arts, something a little bit different from all the work that we've been doing, which I think is a welcome break. But Vermont Council on the Arts, Writers for Recovery, Chris Kaufman and Bess O'Brien to talk a bit about the program. So please feel free to
go first. Yeah, just to be clear, the Vermont Council on Arts is our sister organization. We are Vermont Humanities Council. Yeah. And we work together to present the Vermont Creative Network Day every year at the State House. So thank you so much for having us. Again, for the record, my name is Christopher Papanilstrip. I'm the Executive Director at Vermont Humanities. We are the state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities, which could really use your support right now in the federal government, and the Library of Congress. So we are the state affiliate for the Library of Congress as well. We are super grateful, as always, to the Vermont legislature for supporting the budget of the Vermont Arts Council and Vermont Humanities every year, along with the Vermont Symphony Orchestra and the Vermont Historical Society. We turned 50 last year. We've been around for a long time. And the legislature's work really is pretty critical. The contribution that is made in the budget is about 17% of our budget each year. The National Endowment for the Humanities is about 42%. The rest of it is privately raised from individual donors each year. Our biggest program is community grant making. We make grants across the state. All 14 counties. Grants that we've made over the last year include programming grants for the Veterans Town Hall program, which allows veterans to tell their stories in a nonpartisan, non-political way across the state and build awareness of the needs of veterans. We funded the Wind and World Affairs Council down in Brattleboro to do events around the history of the Constitution as we approach the 250th anniversary of the nation. And here in Montpelier, we recently made a grant to the Parks and Trees Department to do some interpretive trail signage in Hubbard Park, just behind us there, that brings the Abenaki language into the park, the original inhabitants of the land. We also run a lot of early literacy programs, including the Vermont Early Learning Initiative with librarians. And the Never Too Early and Read With Me programs, which are professional development for teachers, primarily teachers serving the youngest kids 0 to 5. They get education credits, continuing education credits for the through CCP learning lines. We also run summer humanities camps and a lot of other things. But what we're really here in this committee to talk about is our work with corrections and our partnership with Writers for Recovery. And Bess will talk to you in just a moment in a little bit more detail about that. I have put at your spaces some information about Vermont Humanities, but also a copy of our current Vermont Reads book, which is being used in a lot of the correctional facilities across the state over the course of the coming year. We pick one book every year to help with a lot of librarians, teachers, and students, and that can be widely read and discussed in the state of Vermont, and that project programming can happen around it. So it's not just a book club. You actually have to do a community project while you're reading the book. This book is by the principal of Oxbow High School. It's a young adult novel. It was nominated for the National Book Award the day that it came out. It won the Kirkus Prize for Young Adult Literature, which is a very prestigious award, a national award. And it was a finalist for the Vermont Book Award as well. It's had tremendous momentum. Typically, a Vermont Reads book distributes about 4,000 copies during the course of a program year. We ran out of 4,000 copies in the first couple of months on this book. So that was pretty exciting. There's now 6,200 copies out in the world. So about twice as many as we would normally have. 91 different communities across the state, 120 different projects running the book right now. Ken has been visiting schools and community groups in all 14 counties. He's intending to go into a couple of the correctional facilities before the year with the book is over. He was here at Farmers Night last Wednesday And you can now watch that presentation actually on the Orca website if you want. We are working a lot with Bess and Writers for Recovery because a big part of this book is about a mom who's struggling with addiction, substance abuse disorder. And the book is primarily about her son, Ian, who's trying to protect his mom and support her as she tries to recover, and about the experiences that he has, kind of trying to be the grown-up in a really bad situation. This is an experience that many people in our facilities are experiencing, as you know, that many people are in the correctional facilities because of substance use disorder problems. And so the book is really relevant to their experience. Writers for Recovery has been going into the facilities. Bess is going to talk more about what that specific experience is like. We have also been working with Bess's other, which is as a filmmaker, where she created a film about trying to survive in Vermont under difficult circumstances with housing insecurity, with medical insecurity, and other things we've been showing that from around the state as well. I'm going to sort of close out my piece, just quoting one of the teachers who's been working with us on this project, Margaret Gish. Wrote back to us recently, and she said, one of the most meaningful moments for me and Vermont Reads was watching a student who is well reflected and gathers main character interact with the author. The look in their eyes and in the author's eyes was telling beyond words. When students are able to see their real life struggles reflected and validated in the eyes of the author and the community, I think they start to see a future for themselves that might be broader than they might have previously thought possible. I think that's very important that we provide this work to people in the facilities so that they can start to imagine a future for themselves as well, beyond their time in court for St. Albans or South-Burlington. I do have an evaluation of our work in correctional facilities that we did this summer. I'm not going to give that to you today because it was really written internally for us, but I'm going to create a version of it for you and send it back to you that talks about what our history is at Vermont Humanities of working in correctional facilities. It dates way back into the 1980s. It was a pretty important part of our work up until the pandemic. Things just shut down. All external education programs were closed and have remained closed to us for the last roughly 4 years. Our staff person, Morgan Irons, worked closely with Bess to evaluate what we did in the past, try to build relationships for the future. And I'm going to turn it over to Bess to talk about that. Thank you. We'll both be here to answer questions.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Good. So I'm Bess O'Brien. I'm from Stephen County Productions up in the Northeast Kingdom. I'm a documentary filmmaker, but I started this program, Writers for Recovery, 10 years ago. We just turned 10. And we do writing programs in all of the recovery centers around the state, the turning points, all of the prisons, treatment centers, and public spaces. And really what Writers for Recovery is, it's, a way to get folks in specifically the prisons that we're talking about today to really find their voice, to be able to express themselves, to write about their stories and share their stories with each other. And we found it immensely helpful. And I just want to thank, first of all, the Department of Corrections, because the Department of Corrections has been funding this program for 10 years. And without it, it would be really hard for us to get in there. And so they're very supportive of this program. And the Vermont Humanities over the last year and a half has also been giving us funding to do this work. So the way that these workshops go is that we walk into a prison. Usually there's between 10 and 20 prisoners there. And we give them 7-minute writing prompts. So part of the idea with writers recovery is that, a lot of these guys and women, we also work extensively in the women's prisons. Maybe they didn't have a great time in high school, maybe they didn't like writing. So it's not about grammar. It's not about spelling. It's about just go with this writing prompt. You only have 7 minutes to write. Okay. Don't think about it much. Just go with it. And so some of the writing prompts are things like when I walked into the room, or I am from, or here is a question I asked myself. Okay. So open-ended. It could be anything you're writing about. But what it does is it gives people, they don't get all stuck on like, when did you start using, or what was the first thing that went wrong in your life? It's more like this prompt sort of opens you up to subconsciously thinking about something in your past or something that's going on right now. So they have 7 minutes to write. They all write. Some guys come in and go, I don't know, I'm not a good writer. I don't know what this is. But right away, once we get them those prompts, they're going. After those 7 minutes, they share. Most people share. You don't have to share. And that's where the real magic happens, because when they start reading their stuff aloud to each other, they start saying, oh yeah, man, I remember that I remember when I was like that, or that moment I really connected to this part of your story or whatever. So it's very cathartic for them. And for us, like I've been in the women's prison now, I don't know, 10 times. And this is like, water in the desert for these women. I mean, we walk into these writing workshops and they're like, thank God you're here. Something to do during the day, something creative, something that's, makes them feel good after they've finished the hour and a half that we've done. And they're usually 10-week sessions once a week for an hour and a half. And it's not only, they're not only writing about traumatic stuff, they're writing about their kids, they're writing about their parents. We also do an incredible workshop called the Lullaby Project in the prisons with the women, where we go in and write lullabies with them for their children. So, I mean, it's incredible. We have mothers, we have grandparents who write for their grandchildren, and we work with Scribe Mountain Music to write these lullabies in 2 days. Okay. Scary, right? How do I write a lullaby? I don't know how to write music. I don't know how to write lyrics. We work with them, we create a lullaby, and then they have a lullaby that they can sing to their kids. So it's an amazing program. It's a beautiful program. It actually started at Carnegie Hall, and we got trained in that to do that in the prison. So very powerful program. And a lot of the folks that we work with in the prison say things like, this kind of work is the best thing in the prison. It's the best program we have here. Number of people we work with in the prisons, we then see 2 years later in the recovery centers. So they come back, they get out, and then they find out we're running workshops at the local recovery centers. So we work with people who are inside and outside. We also publish these anthologies once a year, and we publish this is everybody from all our workshops, but many of the people who are incarcerated get their piece in here, and that's huge for them to get their published work in a book. It's anonymous, but they know who they are. One of the coolest things was that we wrote a lullaby with a grandmother, and we sent it off to Carnegie Hall, because every year they choose a certain amount of workshops from around the country to perform at Carnegie Hall, and they chose one of the ones that we did at the Women's Correctional Facility, and they made a video of it and they sent it to us, and we showed the video of this woman's lullaby that she wrote for her grandchild being performed at Carnegie Hall. And, this is a woman who's been in prison for 6 years, and we brought her in and said, there is your song being sung by professionals in New York City. I mean, it was really cool. So this stuff is just, awesome for folks. So I'm just going to read before I finish. I just want to say that the arts are such an important way of getting people to feel empowered, to make them feel a sense of themselves, to learn skills like interacting, connecting with each other. We need that stuff, right? We need people as they leave the prisons to feel better about themselves and to be able to know how to communicate with each other. And this is a great way to do it. I'm just going to read you one piece that somebody wrote in the prisons in 7 minutes. This is called I Am the One Who. I am the one who tires. I am the one who makes a beginning, the one who learns from his mistakes and moves on from them, the one who likes to forgive and take chances. I am a person who shows others how to do things from experience. I am a man who has a personality of some kind, who loves to play sports and teach the little ones when he has time. I learned from all the mistakes I had chosen and believed in fate. Taking forgiveness from my friends and family is important. I now will take things as an honor and move on with them while I still can. And then one more short one. I mean, they're just so cool. A morning clean and sober. Refreshing, exhilarating, healthy, happy, energetic, guilt-free, motivated, more money in my pocket. I know where my wallet is and my teeth. The air smells fresher, cleaner, and the bacon, eggs, and toast make my stomach happy too. The kitchen is clean. There are no beer and whiskey bottles on the table, floor, couch. No cigarette burns on the table and the ashtrays. The ashtrays aren't overflowing. I feel a sense of self-control. I am ready to go to work. I don't stink of alcohol. I'm clean and I'm sober. So anyway, it's really fun to work with these guys and gals, and I just want to thank the Department of Corrections for running this program. It's so important, and that's all I got for
Awesome.
now.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.
Can I just close with one of the things from one of the recent evaluations?
yeah,
So we have to collect information for our funders, right, for the state and for the federal government. In one of the recent ones, there was a quote from one of the incarcerated guys that said, going to this workshop was the first time that I forgot who was in prison.
yeah. We've had guys who have started, because we usually do 10 weeks. After the 10 weeks, we have to leave, and mostly they're like, don't go, which is hard. But you know, they had a great time. We've had a number of guys who have continued to do the writing workshops. We send them prompts and they just start on their, like the wing of their prison, and they just start doing it on their own. They're running it on their own. So that is really empowering. So we've given them the tools to be able to continue to do it themselves, which is really awesome. Yeah.
You know, and all of this work is wildly underfunded, of course, and you know, we can get into that if you want to. But also, you know, just know that there are people working very hard in the correctional system to organize and provide this kind of support for people to make sure that they don't lose their humanity, that they do remain real humans. And to be able to participate in that work with them is a real honor and a real blessing. And we're glad to do it, even as it is so logistically difficult. There's lots of different systemic reasons for that that we could talk about. But the point really is like, this is really important, and making sure that our friends and neighbors who are inside know that we care about that when we come out.
Yeah, and most of these guys are probably suffering from addiction stuff in their background. And so a lot of this work is like AA and NA, except differently, helping them work that through and deal with that and express themselves around that and talk about it. And that's important too, because they need to deal with those issues before they get out, you know. And a lot of these guys also learn how to write, because we're like, they get into it and they're writing 2 prompts a day for 10 weeks. And then they get into writing. So they keep journals that they can continue to do once they get out of prison. We've had a lot of guys say, I started writing with you and I'm still writing every day now. So it's teaching them skills too, about ways to keep themselves healthy or deal with, if they're stressed out, how to write something in a journal or whatever. Do you have any questions?
Committee, any questions?
I do.
Senator Bogue.
Thank you. The Lower Life Project, is that only in the women's facility?
It is, because, and you know what? I've been really wanting to think about trying to get into the men's, because I'm like, I mean, yes, it's a project through Keenan County Productions, Scribe Mountain Music, they're the ones who write the music, we're the ones who work with the lyrics, and the Vermont Network Against Domestic Violence. So they're primarily focused on women. So we do the women's prison and then we do 4 domestic violence organizations. But I have brought up the fact that, wow, wouldn't that be powerful to write these lullabies with men?
Yes.
You know, that would be really cool. So great question. And we're really starting to talk about that.
I'm really glad to hear that. I think, for a handful of reasons, that it's come up a couple of times that the facilities are not equitable in terms of
That's right.
providing men access to their children and connection with their children. And in terms of domestic violence, building that type of relationship and that, frankly, healing process of being able to write those things to your child I would think, go a long way to decrease domestic violence.
Yeah. It would also create a vulnerability
Yeah.
for men around rearing your child. I mean, writing a lullaby is a very vulnerable thing to do. So great idea. And, we are definitely talking about doing that. So that's good.
And there have in the past been programs with men, who have children.
Yeah.
But as we said right up front, right, everything shut down in March of 2020, and it's been years to try and rebuild those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, we're now in the prisons. We're back in the prisons, but before COVID, for instance, Writers for Recovery did do quite a bit. We put together a pamphlet of Writers for Recovery prompts that people could do on their own. But it's nice to be back in the prisons again. And of course, working with the men, even with just Writers for Recovery, not the Lullaby Project, I can tell you a lot of men write about their kids. So it's a perfect way to facilitate the Lullaby Project because they do want to write about their kids. They miss their kids. They have a lot of guilt about their kids. So great idea.
And then my other question is, you said you have to leave in 10, why only 10 weeks? What is that, a funding issue?
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
Yeah. I mean, right? In a perfect world, we would be in there all year long,
Yeah.
right? Or at least half the year. It's always a challenge working in the prisons because people come and go, but we don't mind that. If we run a 10-week workshop, sometimes you have somebody all the way through. Sometimes you have somebody joining in the middle of it. You lose people halfway through, but we're very flexible that way. But what you find is that a lot of the people who are in there for a long time want to continue to do it. And you're like, sorry, gotta leave, So we get a $25,000 allotment from the Department of Corrections. And then we raise other money and we get some money from the humanities. But yeah, I mean, if we could double that, or we could get more money for the humanities to give us more money, then we could do twice as many, more than that. So it's a dip in and a dip out, and it's very helpful, but obviously we can always do more. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you do. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any additional questions? And
Are the lullabies published in there?
No,
No.
but if I could send you a link to the so we usually do a concert at the end of first of all, we do like in the women's correctional facility, we spend 2 days writing the lullabies, and then we do have the women sing the lullabies and bring in some musical instruments, and they sing the lullabies to each other. Like the other women come from the different wings, and we do a little concert. Very empowering. Like most of these women have never thought in the world that they would write a lullaby, write a song. Never thought they'd stand up in front of 50 people and sing the song.
Mm-hmm.
So we've recorded that, but then last summer we did a professional performance of the lullabies with professional musicians at the Greensboro Highland Center for the Arts, and that was beautiful. I think we have I can always send you a link to it, but it was just so fabulous. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that the Carnegie Hall does this every year. They choose a certain amount of lullabies and they perform them at Carnegie Hall. And we were just thrilled to have one of our people's lullabies chosen. I mean, just awesome.
Yeah, if you had a link, I could hit play. I have a 6-week-old, so.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. How do I get your email?
I can give it to you. Yeah.
Give it to me, man. What is it?
I'll give it to you. Yeah.
What is it?
CMatos at
Okay, hold it.
ledge.bt.us.
Okay, what is it?
CMatos, MATTOS
Yeah,
at
ledge.
ledge.state.bt.us.
And thank you for doing this. Well, you also have a 6-week-old.
Yeah,
What's your name,
That
man?
is a Chris.
Chris. Okay, where are you from?
Milton.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll try to get that to you.
That's
I
awesome.
will leave a
Thanks.
couple of these books in case you want them or want to share them. They're awesome. This is our fifth anthology and there's everything in it, but, yeah.
And all of this does have very close to the bone in terms of financial sustainability and it's, frequently what you hear is that arts, culture, humanities is the extra, is the sort of the dessert.
Yeah,
And I hope that we're leaving you with the message that it's actually the main meal. It's vital for survival, for many, many people. It's a huge part of being able to make it through the day.
yeah. I mean, many of these people, you just feel like when you go in there, they're just staring at the wall all day or they're watching television. And so the idea that they can come in and have it and create something, like create writing or create a lullaby is stupendous. I mean, it is so, makes them feel so good that they're actually accomplishing something in the prison, and it's, it's great.
Well, thank you. And,
You're welcome.
We can wrap it up and head up to